Hi, I'm Angeline Wu, and I'm a junior at Townsend Harris.
Hi, I'm Wren Walston, and I'm also a junior at Townsend Harris.
Hey everyone, I'm Nameera Khan, a now senior at Townsend Harris and returning host from season 1 of Operation Tomatometer.
And this is Operation Tomatometer, returning for season 2.
So as you guys can tell, Nadia and Aaliyah have now finally left the nest, and we have 2 new hosts joining us. So, guys, now enough about me. Let's turn to our new hosts, Angeline and Wren. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you're excited for most in the new season?
I am Wren. I love to dance, and I'm an aspiring film and TV director. My favorite movie is Tick, Tick, Boom with Andrew Garfield, as I can't get the songs out of my head, and the visuals are just so entertaining for me.
Fantastic choice. And my favorite movie that I've seen this summer is Penguins of Madagascar. I think it's a really good eye wash, so to say, from all the recent anthropomorphic animated movies.
Moving on, let's get into the film that we will be reviewing today. Take it away, Angeline.
Today we will be discussing Youth Governor, a documentary following the journey of nearly 4,000 teens as they take on the task of running their own simulated government. Directed by Matthew and Jaron Helmy, this film details the 4-month story of the high school students as they step into the world of politics, assuming roles as legislators, party candidates, and electors in massive mock elections. Featuring real-life kids like Andy Blaine and Bayo Collins, this film will leave viewers on the edge of their seat as they wonder who will be the next youth governor of the YMCA's National Youth and Government Training Program.
Thank you, Angeline. We were also lucky enough to be given early screening access to this documentary, so we would like to give a big thank you for giving us this opportunity.
So, if you haven't been voting in an imaginary election with 4,000 high schoolers, then you'd know about the new documentary, The Youth Governor.
I thought it was a very it definitely told its story. I thought it did a great job. I immediately noticed that it did a great job of obscuring the results of each election. Like, you never really know. Like, you're for sure this candidate's gonna win, and then it's like, no, but actually they just found out something about this guy like 4 years ago.
I don't consider myself a politics person usually. Like, I do not want to get involved, but after watching the film, politics isn't everything. You can't really avoid it. So if you're a climate change activist, that still has to deal with politics. And it's really important to start being aware and raising your voice up. And I think this movie really changed my mind about my interests and what I have to tackle.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I thought that the entire documentary did such a well done job of just showing us this process, which is unique to California as far as I know. And I just really love the entire idea of this mock simulation. We do something similar in Townsend, so we'll get more into that later. So in season 1 of Operation Tomatometer, we would normally try to guess the score the critics back at Rotten Tomatoes have given to our film, rotten or not. But this season, we will be coming up with our own critic scores and working together to come to consensus on an official final Operation Tomatometer score for the film as the new official OT film critics. So, Wren and Angeline, what do you guys think?
I would give this documentary a score of 90 as it's engaging, informational, and super interesting.
I'd give it an 80 just because I'm already out of context, I'm pretty prejudiced against documentaries, and I don't think this documentary was in that way groundbreaking for me. It didn't really change my perspective on documentaries as a whole, but I still did enjoy it. It did leave a very blatant and clear message for what the youth of America should do.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, Angeline. I would personally give this documentary an 81. I think there were a lot of yeah, just that 1 point more, but I think there was a lot of things well done in this film, and I think that it did a really great job in helping us understand this really unique process and understanding how the government sort of works in that way. We got to see the different processes, the caucuses and whatnot.
I disagree with both of you. It really changed my mind about politics, and I respectfully disagree, but
okay,
for the other documentaries I've seen, I was very interested in this one. I'd also like to bring to attention the first scene in the documentary where the previous youth governor is walking out ready to give his speech, and there's a dramatic speech that I think he's giving about how he's preparing for it and how it's so important to all of these people. And I really liked that as the first thing you see when you watch this movie, which as we said before, it wasn't about the previous youth governor, but I think it showed the importance of like the job and why people want that job.
Speaking of the former youth governor, I remember a certain scene where like it was like with the scandal at the end with the previous like the audition for the youth governor came up, which I thought this was like really funny because he was like, man, I went through the same thing. I went through the exact same thing you did. People would call me short. And I was like, okay, I understand. We both had, difficulties within the campaign. Yes, that's relatable, but I don't know if being called short and, being called out for, questionable stances. I don't know, but I thought that was just probably, something that they were like, you should probably go help that guy over there. Do you think this film intends for us to humanize like politicians more? Is that like, do you think one of the hidden messages, or do you think no, I'm just going haywire?
I mean, definitely that was part of the purpose of the film, I think. Probably not the direct, like, this is what I want to tell people. And Aiden was a trackie, and, some of us are trackies at Townsend Harris. It was more about telling kids that, hey, you can do this. It's not out of reach. You can do what these adults are doing and make a difference.
First off, bless your heart if you're a trackie at Townsend. Dear Lord, that is one commitment. But I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to disagree with you there, Angeline, but I think it's more so because I see a lot of the different candidates kind of like throwing shade to how politics today is not kind of conducted in like an orderly manner. And I feel like consistently throughout the documentary they talk about how like over here it's more civil, over here we're kind of trying to all understand the process and whatnot. So I don't think it's to humanize politicians. I think it's to show what the new generation could provide to politics given the chance. And I think they elaborate on that with the way that they propose different ideas, and they kind of try to tie it in to their available kind of government officials. Like the mayor came in, and I believe their governor. It kind of shows like we're preparing the new youth for this next change, this like kind of shift in power. And it starts off with us, people our age, 16, 17-year-olds, all of that.
Have we reached a consensus?
Oh, for the final score?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm stubborn with my 80s.
I'm willing to bring mine down, but I would say like an 83 or 4.
I could go with the 83 or 4.
Which one?
I'll hand the decision over to you, Nameera.
I think we all found something that was really appealing and something that was very like kind of like resonated with us. I think an appropriate score would be like an 83. I think that going on the lower end shows that there's a lot of room for improvement, and I'm not over the drama. I want to see it there, but I definitely think that this documentary deserves at least an 83. So speaking of like all of these connections to high schoolers, actually at our school, Townsend Harris, we do something really similar. We have the election sim, which happens every year in the fall, and it's kind of like this process where our AP Gov and AP Macro classes simulate the ongoing election in New York City, or even in America. We've had things such as senator elections as well as the presidential elections. And this year, I know myself and some of the other executive producers at Operation Tomatometer will be a part of the process. So what do you guys think of election sim at Townsend?
I think it's a little bit different from, what the documentary entails, just because, ours is much more artificial in some ways. We model ourselves after real life politicians, which is also something different that we do, but also we bribe the students with candy, which is something that I don't know if they're allowed to do that in the doc. I don't know if they did that in the documentary.
Yeah, I want to add on, you guys don't really get to share your opinion. If you're stuck with that candidate, then you're stuck with that candidate, whereas the kids in the documentary are sharing their own opinions, and they really have to work to try and get people who support them.
Yeah, but I think both of these kind of like processes also have a lot of similarities in terms of like social media is a really big platform. You're using a lot of different sorts of ways to just reach out to the public. I know at Townsend, we have the radio show, which happens every single, I believe it's your history band, where people can like kind of just interact with the show and call in and even have a chance to earn fake currency known as Simbucks. And that's something that we do that's also different. What do you guys think about Simbucks?
I think some books was a great way to like fund
Get
fun campaigns and get free food. Yeah, Ren. Um, yeah, I think it also encourages like political. I don't know if we would have as much participation in this like fake election sim if we didn't have like some sort of, I don't know, economy.
Yeah. But like, I don't know how well it works because I feel like as like a lower classman last year, if you see something good at that table of all the goodies, then you're gonna buy it. Like you don't. Well, I looked into the candidates a few times, but if there was a pizza and I was really hungry, I just went for it.
True. So it sounds like we have a lot of differences from the youth governor simulation, but I think something that maybe does hone in more of like their sort of ideals is our regular student union elections, which I can speak towards. I think that's kind of like where we get to have that individualism to create our own policies and campaign the ways that we want to, with a lot of restrictions, a lot of online campaigning. But how'd you guys feel after this year's student union campaign?
Yeah, I thought it was very similar to the ones in the documentary. Like it was, just campaigns. I'm pretty sure they had to the two. There was like one segment right after the breakfast question. They showed like people were like making memes of the candidates, and it was like my favorite one, by the way, was egg guy, and it was like a close zoomed up picture of his face, and it was just like me when I don't get my eggs, and I don't know. I was like, man, perfect. And I think that's something that happens within our school too, with our SU elections. I don't know. Yeah, we do make like memes of sorts.
Yeah, you want to get as much reach as you can. Try and engage the audience. I feel like I've been using that word a lot this episode, engaged, but politics, you really have to engage people. So this is actually the first documentary like this that we have ever reviewed on Operation Tomatometer. So we are now going to dive into the details that make it a strong or not a strong documentary.
I think for me, I actually was like, I really enjoyed this documentary just because it was the first documentary that I've seen that would had like an uplifting message at the end, and not like, and then she died all alone, or like, and that's how she got killed, or something like that, right? So I think it's a very interesting concept, and I think that's kind of like the most attractive point for me. And I actually did recommend this to someone today, actually. So I think it's a light watch. I think it's something that you don't have to like press your brain about too much, and I enjoy that a lot.
When you're watching the film, like it immerses you. You definitely like become, an audience member within those like, 4,000 people in California. Well, I don't know why we keep mentioning it, but like it definitely does a great job of like making you feel like pressured and like, oh, like I felt like I was on the edge of my seat during that final scene between the two candidates, like between that final like election. How like everybody would like say their vote, and they would kind of like make it seem like nobody was like a clear winner. They would only focus on the numbers of each person as they get exponentially higher and higher. I thought, man, so I think that's the suspense definitely made it a great documentary.
About the numbers thing also, we didn't know how high they could get. Like we got to 200 and I was like, oh, it's almost done, who's ahead? That made it even more of an anticipation.
And I think just to touch upon that more, the reason why the suspense was actually really well done was because I personally really enjoyed the editing. I think that something that makes or breaks a documentary is definitely the editing style. Are you kind of like flipping quickly enough to make sure that we're engaged all the time? Are you making sure that the tension's building up? And definitely when they were like counting every single like group's vote and we saw like the numbers going up, that's where the editing really came into play. I love the different sequences as well when we were first being introduced to the candidates. And yeah, I think that was something that really stood out to me. But definitely the confessional editing, just the editing of sequences and all of that type of stuff.
I think that about wraps up today's episode. Stay tuned for Tomatastic content from Operation Tomatometer on Apple Podcasts, and check out the Classic and Classic Critic on Instagram and TikTok page at THHS Classic to see our bloopers, behind the scenes, and other cool projects we're working on.
Let us know in the comments what you thought of today's episode.
Thanks for watching. See you all next week. Bye.
Bye.